Welcome, everyone. We're excited to be here today for the Engaging Families as Partners in the Digital Learning Process. My name is Christine Fox. I'm the Senior Technical Assistant Specialist here at CAS, and I am the Project Director for SITES, the project we'll be highlighting today. And with me, I have a colleague, Angel Morgan, who's a doctoral candidate at North Carolina State University, and we're excited that we've been able to partner with her. She was a CAST intern and worked on our SITES project, and now we're partnering with her as she continues her research around family engagement. As a reminder, as part of this conference and any funding that is supported by the OSEP funds and this conference, the information shared here does not necessarily represent the Department of Education, and you should not assume that is an endorsement by the Department of Education. Here at CAST, we do have a commitment to accessibility, and so we wanted to ensure that we work to make sure that our sites and our documents are usable for everyone. And we like to share that at the highlight of every one of our presentations. In addition, all of the resources that we're providing today are under the Creative Commons license. And so we encourage you to leverage them, access them, and reuse and remix as best suits your needs. So for today, our specific objectives are to share more about sites so that you have a better understanding specifically of this project. We're going to highlight some resources, and then we want you to be empowered to focus on this work in the schools and districts that you work with as well. Specifically, sites' goal is to empower districts to create sustained, inclusive technology ecosystems that foster intentional collaboration between EdTech, AT, and Infotech to better benefit students with disabilities and all students. And being the project director here at SITES, it's exciting to share that we're bringing together those EdTech leaders. My background is in educational technology, AT leaders, and the special education teams, as well as the information technology leaders in districts, including CIOs and their staff, all the way from the CIO to tech support, so that everyone is on the same page, focused on supporting students and their needs throughout the school day, and also when they have devices at home. So the SITES framework itself includes 6 framework development districts. The framework is in process, so we have been working for several years and will continue through the fall of 2023 to develop the SITES framework, which is a guide for districts and leaders in school districts and to support this collaboration across teams to make sure that inclusive technology practices are in place. So as you can see from the map here, we have a variety of districts from across the country. The districts on the left that are listed are framework development districts. We work with them providing targeted technical assistance. We meet with them regularly. They are supporting the implementation of the SITES framework practices, providing us feedback, and they help us develop the SITES framework. In addition, you can see here from the orange highlighted states in the map that we also have knowledge development districts. And those districts are districts where we've been able to identify schools or districts that have inclusive practices in place, and it may be under a specific topic, such as leadership, teaching, or learning. In fact, right now we're in the knowledge development process for the infrastructure phase of the SITES framework development. And there are districts throughout the country that we've been able to engage with and highlight. And in a bit, I'm going to share some examples on our website where you can see vignettes and case stories from multiple knowledge development districts. The sites framework itself is coordinated into 5 areas. These areas are based on the 2017 National Educational Technology Plan published by the Office of Educational Technology at the U.S. Department of Ed. And so the sites framework aligns to this directly. And as you can see here, we have leadership, infrastructure, teaching, learning, and assessment. And within each of these, we have the ability for leaders to access information, look at resources, see research at the bottom of each page. And then we also have tools. For example, we have self-assessments where districts can access self-assessment resources and look at where they are and where they want to go. We also have field guides. So once you've completed the self-assessment, you can look through the entire leadership set of practices and plug in as it makes sense for you and your district. We know that everyone are starting in different places. We started with some districts that didn't even have a technology plan, to other districts that were a little bit more forward thinking but needed support or to enhance the processes that they had in place as well. Leadership, teaching, learning, and assessment content and resources have been published, and they are going through a review process and implementation process. The infrastructure portion of the sites framework is in process and will be published later this fall. So please note that if you are digging around through the site. One critical component that is our focus today around family engagement. And so with that, the National Ed Tech Plan did not have family engagement as a specific topic. And therefore, we do not have it as a standalone topic. However, everyone on the sites team and the knowledge development and the framework development districts felt that this was so important that we have decided to work on the family engagement process by sharing information related to family engagement throughout the sites framework and throughout each of the topics. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment and actually go out onto the sites website and share a little bit more about the family engagement, the resources that are available, and the information. So with that, I'm going to now share my screen. Here. So this is the landing page of the site's website, and you can see we have the overall view of the site itself and some of the newest resources that we have available. There's also an overview video, and here at the OSEP Leadership Conference, you can visit the site's booth and access that video as well. And then you can see the 5 specific topics. So digging into family engagement, the first step for us in this knowledge development process was to complete a lit review. And actually that was Angel that supported that process with us. So on our resources page, you can download a full literature review. It is very comprehensive. It's very research heavy at the top. And but I have to tell you, when I started reading through it and understanding the process analysis of the research, makes my head spin a little bit. But then when you dig into the examples of what people have studied and the why, and it all just makes a lot of sense. It's good practices that most of us probably know and have seen schools implement, and then also things that we wish everyone was implementing to engage families with their students, especially students with disabilities. So family engagement literature review, as I mentioned, is fairly comprehensive and depth, and we know not everyone's going to sit down and read a full paper. So with that in mind, we decided to chunk out the information that's available in the lit review throughout this website. So not on every page, but on most pages, you can see on the top right, we have a family engagement box. And whenever you see this icon with the 2 hands and the heart, that indicates family engagement. And then we give a few reminders. So for example, here, when you're thinking about technology implementation planning, having families participate in that continuum, having families provide giving them information and having them give input into the planning process is so critical. You'll note here that the research related to this is in parentheses. And then if you scroll to the bottom of the page, the supporting resources and research is available for you to access. And similarly, in the teaching side of things, looking at the technology competencies and offering trainings to families is so important. And these are just reminders of things that can and should be happening within your schools. So we encourage you to check out the site's website, to dig into some of the family resources that are available, and then to consider, where you are and where your district is in this continuum around family engagement practices, and then hopefully leverage some of the suggestions that we have. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Angel, who's going to share a bit more about the knowledge development. I just highlighted a bit about the lit review, and then dig into her study, and then also share a bit about how we're gathering more examples from schools that are considered exemplars. Angel?
Thanks, Christine. So we started out with the literature review, and we are now conducting two separate studies. The first one I'm doing as part of my dissertation is a study that includes both a quantitative survey. So we took perceptions of families using an anonymous survey across the country, and then we are corroborating the family input from the survey with a series of focus groups where we're interviewing family members to get a little more detail about the impact of some of the survey responses. Along with that, the sites team is conducting interviews with school districts regarding their family engagement practices to gain a better understanding of their perspective. So by achieving both sides of the way family engagement works, we really hope to come up with a solid set of best practices for districts across the country. Can you go to the next slide? Sorry. Within the literature review, we actually organize the findings by 5 sites areas, similar to the way the website is laid out. And primary findings for the leadership aspect were that it's kind of best to elicit family input during planning through surveys, communicating frequently with parents with email and the district's parent portal. So for example, Power School or Infinite Campus. And then to continuously improve upon technology initiatives by including families on advisory boards. Family input can be very valuable, and connecting, for example, your PTA representatives with your regular board meetings is provides more of a invitive input. And then also it's a good idea to offer technology demonstrations and hands-on learning opportunities, typically within the context of other school events. It's more successful that way as opposed to just technology dedicated events. So you'll get a more broader audience to communicate with. And finally, when you offer these engagement opportunities and talk about with families, it's best to engage them in their own native language and to offer translation services so that everyone has an equal opportunity to learn about these experiences. And from the study so far, we have gotten several good feedback about leadership practices from family members. And one of these was that their school was very responsive to the wishes regarding specific goals, learning environments. And they were discussed using an iPod rather than an iPad. So that they can include classical music that the student liked. So the leadership was able to account for and accept input on the type of technology that the student was using to better plan for effective use and student satisfaction. So that's one of the benefits that including at the leadership level. Moving on to the infrastructure level, we had 3 key findings from the Lit Review. The first was to integrate district or schools data system with online learning systems. And so this provides less of a barrier for students to allow them to simply log into the Google Classrooms or Canvas, for example, as well as it provides a parent view of the students, the progress the student is making. So you have one view, one login. It really makes accessing information simpler. And then next was to ensure mobile accessibility of ed tech and infotech resources. This allows families to access this information on a smartphone. And often families, their only device is a mobile phone. And so in that sense, by making it mobile friendly, then parents have access to all the resources they need. And finally, when planning the district or school website, use simple navigation and easy to locate technology information. They're essential consideration to encourage families to make use of these resources, because if they can't find the resources, they can't make use of them. And then regarding infrastructure, one of our family participants from our survey told us that they wrote in a request for using Canvas to access all of students' educational assignments from class. And then he uses his Chromebook as his assistive technology device. So the devices that the school provides are essential, and families find them very valuable. And when they're integrated and the student can access everything they need and the family can access everything they need, the student has a lot more potential for success. Moving on to teaching, we had quite a few outcomes. First was to use email and phone when you're using two-way communication. And the teaching recommendations here are a result of things that classroom educators, teachers, speech language pathologists, for example, provided input or said through within the publications. And then for students with disabilities, regular communication gives families information about in-school learning with visual examples. So providing visual examples of how students do things is really important in those email communications. When you just have resources to post for all parents, make them in a single place accessible, such as on the Google Classroom Learning Management page. Um, and then also let parents know about those through the two-way communication devices, email, phone, texting. Next, when you have those opportunities to meet face-to-face with students, such as parent-teacher conferences, discuss how EdTech is actually being used in the classroom and how parents can use the technology at home. When the parents are in the classroom, set up things that they can actually do hands-on and experience as well. If you're doing virtual meetings with parents, allow them to take a tour, get up, take your phone with you, use the camera, let them see how the technology is set up, and from their students' point of view, just help them experience what it's like to learn. And then finally, include families in assistive technology planning and offer training and resources so families can work with students at home. Assistive technology just used at school is not necessarily going to help the student generalize to being able to use that technology in life and for practical reasons functionally. So allowing the parents to understand how to support their student with assistive technology is just as important as the student learning to use the technology itself. And regarding assistive technology, one of our survey respondents reported that the AAC device was constantly updated to match the curriculum so that the student could participate and answer questions. So this is just as important. So supporting, enabling the teacher to be able to keep up the assistive technology device, or the parents to provide updates on what's going on at home. So keeping the content of assistive technology current is really important so that the student has the most possibility to participate in an inclusive experience. They have those options there for those that they're unable to actually communicate independently. Next, we have the learning area of the knowledge of the CITES framework. And within learning, it's important to leverage technology to periodically check in with families and teach them to support their students learning at home. Texting parents, calling parents, just giving them some guidance in any way is really supportive. Using texting and electronic family journals are an opportunity to share daily wins and challenges with family members. So just as, sometimes you have a take-home notebook and like a black and white composition book, it's just as helpful to use a shared Google Doc where a student or the parent can actually write back and forth, and you can kind of keep an ongoing journal, and it's searchable. You can add images to it, and it makes it very interactive way of telling a story and seeing the student's progress. Um, then next, offer at-home technology-based learning activities related to the curriculum to increase student interest in the content. If, you know, Homework, not always the fun thing to do, but if you provide information about learning games, for example, local public television stations have, the Smithsonian, a lot of places have online resources. And if you can connect those and allow parents to see what those resources are, the parents can then provide those resources and encourage students to engage in those opportunities outside of school, over breaks or the summer, just in free time to continue learning and gauge more of an interest in what you're learning at school. And then finally, explain how online games can enhance both academic and social emotional learning. It really is important for students to learn more of us in a social context as well. So a lot of learning games will provide situations and examples and scenarios that students can kind of work through and use critical thinking skills, which is really an important skill for in general throughout life. So providing those opportunities is very good. And then one of our parents said, we collaborate on AAC strategies across home and school, especially with this e-talker. We communicate often about motivators and behavior observations. So it's really important here that this parent really appreciated the fact that the AAC device supported his students' learning, and was a source of motivation, and making sure that those motivation and behavioral observations continue to be discussed, so that we can keep the students' success going. And the final area which we are looking at within the sites framework is assessment. The literature supporting assessment was pretty weak. Not a whole lot was out there about family engagement for specifically large scale assessments. There's quite a bit about classroom engagement, but within large scale, really it was pointing to the value of using more project-based assessments such as e-portfolios, things that allow you to see students' work over time, and just get authentic examples of what the student is really able to do versus multiple choice tests. E-portfolios and exemplar work of students really show the student growth and success over time, and they can help establish a baseline for academic, social, and vocational goal setting, that parents and other providers can use as examples and in discussion to be able to help transitions between different school levels and then also into the workforce. And regarding this, one of our parents said that my daughter's teachers implemented many things with my daughter this year and bought her a light table and other things specific for her visual impairment. And so with this, the student and the parent were able to have a device, an actual physical thing in the classroom where that student was able to produce artifacts in their own way, in the way that they learned. And so this is really kind of related to e-portfolios in the sense that it is a way to demonstrate and show knowledge versus and what they can do versus just um, you know just an e-reader or a something that really allows them just to access the material. This helps them to actually demonstrate their work, um, to help them move forward. So with that information, I will turn it back over to Christine, and she will share about the site's community of practice.
Before I jump into the community practice, I do want to say first thank you to Angel for being so dedicated to this process, as a former classroom teacher and reading coach, but also the parent of a child that has a 504 plan, and the friend of several teachers that work with high incidence students. Just hearing and seeing these things all together makes sense. And some things maybe are just little tweaks for schools to consider, and others probably have to do a more comprehensive job of engaging with families in different ways. So we're excited to take this information and put it to good use and to disseminate it throughout the schools. And I did want to share Grossmont Unified School District in California, which is one of our framework development districts, actually talked about this in our meeting last week of how they had what they called family technology nights for their students with special needs, specifically those families. So they brought the families in, they hosted them. They did go back to that last year with COVID, but not as well attended as they had hoped. So they are relaunching again this coming school year. They're already planning for 2022, 2023, sprinkling those events out throughout the school year so that families could come in, test the technology, ask questions. They provide childcare so that the families are able to engage with the administrators and teachers in a more comprehensive way. And then they don't have to worry about hiring a babysitter or being distracted during the session. So lots of great things going on throughout the country. And with that, I would encourage anyone is welcome to join the Sites Community of Practice. It is a very fairly informal group. We have quarterly meetings via Zoom. We just had one in early June, and we will have another one in September. And we also have a Slack channel. So it's a private Slack channel. So if you sign up for the Community of Practice, you'll have the opportunity to be added to that Slack channel. You can ask questions. You also will stay informed around the site's framework development and other resources that you may find useful inside of the education technology inclusive practices space. So we try to be diverse in what we're sharing, and we encourage others to share inside of that too. And we want to end on a positive note. Someone that was very dedicated to Sites, a project from its inception, Dr. Joy Zabala, who is no longer with us, but was so passionate about students and their learning. And this quote is from her. "I used to think I was passionate about assistive technology. What I've learned is that I'm very passionate about participation and learning. So this is not about the technology. This is about people's lives, living and learning, and the functions that have to do with that. And that is where the passion lies." So be inspired to leverage this information, to share it amongst your projects and districts, and follow us along the way. And you can stay connected by visiting our website. CAST has other opportunities as well through our professional learning. We have a books and media, and then you can always email sites@cast.org, and we're happy to stay engaged. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day.